Items that you'll need to build your snowman: slab of clay. This is a 1/4 inch thick. You'll need your mug cutout, which is 4 3/4 by 11.5 inches. You'll need circle cutter for the bottom of the mug. You'll need 2 coils, one for the rim of the hat and one to put on the inside. I use this extruder, and it makes a square shape, and that's what I'm going to use, but if you don't have that, you can just use coils. This is for the scarf. If you don't have one of these, you can also just use a coil. 45 cutter, or you can just use your pin tool and cut. Scraper to score the edges, my initials, this to compress the clay. These two I use for inside to smooth out the joint. Brushes for the colorant, and then cling seal. I'm going to use color slip. These are the colors I'm using, but you can also use underglazes in the same colors, or whatever color you choose. Or you can just build it and then use celadons or stroke and coats and paint it after it's built. I use this, which is a Pringles can that I put plaster in and let it form, then it's peeled back, and I use this for a lot of my cup building. It gives me a strong support to blend the seam in. I use this guy with a nylon on top of a PVC pipe, and I use this to help pick up the clay. So after I've rolled out the clay, I'll roll it like this so I can pick it up, and it eliminates stretch. Okay, let's get started. Okay, I'll start by compressing the clay. I'm sure you've seen this a million times on other videos, and the importance of aligning the particles, yada yada yada. Okay, and we'll start with the shape of the mug. Off to the side. I'll use the angle cutter and cut my edges. Use this. Let's roll it up so I can flip it over. The other side. Now while it's on the other side, I will take this one coil and I will place it on the bottom, slip and score. And what this is going to do is, when I go to put the bottom on, it's going to stop the bottom from falling inside of the cup. And then I'll also use this to blend the seam on the inside. now that I've moved it around a little bit, I am going to just check my pattern and cut any stretch that I may have. And I'll line it up with this outside edge because that's the inside cut, where this side I can cut again once I get it back to size. And sometimes I don't need to do that at all. Sometimes it doesn't stretch. Okay. Now I'll get the second piece here. And I'm going to get the black and the white. Okay. I'm going to use this to give me a nice straight line. I'm just going to score it so I know where to put the white color and the black color. So starting with the white, and give it a good mix. I'm just going to give this a good coat. I'm pre-coloring this because it just makes it so much easier. Instead of trying to use your brush and get into all the little pieces, especially between the hat border and the white of the snowman, it just makes it a lot easier. So I'm going to do 3 coats of this for each color. I'm also going to do the one side that will be facing the white when I put it on, once it dries. And that way I won't have to fiddle with it. I'm running out of black. I can make some more. Okay, let that dry and then we'll do a second coat. Okay, well that's drying. I am going to cut out my bottom. I have enough. I'm going to do 2 bottoms in case I mess one up. Get my initials and stamp the bottom. Went a little deep, so I need to do 2. Okay. And I'll roll this up and make a skirt. Now I'm going to be using the color slip on this, so I'm actually going to flip it over and get most of the cornstarch out so that it doesn't impede with the color slip. You need 1 and a little bit to go across the 11.5 inches. Okay. Now I score it when it's in here. That way it doesn't squish the pattern. I'll do it later. And I will give this 2 coats. The reason I only give it 2 coats is because I want to do the 3rd coat when it's assembled. What I'm really interested in getting is the edges. That's going to be close to the snowman, to the white of the snowman. This mat that I'm using is just an old mat that I got up actually in Canada. And it's like a pleather, and it's great because it doesn't, it keeps the clay moist. It doesn't dry it out by putting it on wood or canvas. It gives me a little longer working time. Okay, I'm going to use my hairdryer to speed this up, and I'll come back. Okay, now I'll do the 2nd coat of the scarf. And I'm going to brush it sort of going along the same pattern so that I'm not distorting too much of the pattern. Okay. 3rd coat for the black. To make it nice and smooth. I forgot to tell you that if you don't have the fondant mold to get the scarf, you can take your coil. Let's make this up. You can take your coil and pony roller, and just flatten it a bit. Don't go too much. Do it on both sides. So you're going to have some thickness to it. Score the one side. And then I just use my needle tool and I just make little impressions, giving it a knitted effect. Just giving it some texture. And you can even use texture. If you wanted to use a mat, that's what I have. Say you've got a mat like this, or even a roller, and you can just put it on and press it in. And make a scarf looking like that, which will look really nice as well. So there's lots of ways of doing it. This is just the way I do it. Okay, now that everything's dry, we are going to flip this over and score it along the edge. And we're going to score right where we want it to go along this line. And because it's dry, I'm going to have to add some water. I might just use water to slip. Add water to the score line here because, like I said, this little piece dries out quickly, especially when I use a hairdryer on it. And I'm going to press it down. Take a little black slip, or just touch it up. My finger marks. Okay, now for the scarf, I'm going to try and find approximately halfway. I'm going to give him a space for his nose. Score that. And then I want the scarf to come up and over his mouth. So score along here. And then the remainder of the scarf will go this way. So I'm going to use this one here. And I'm going to make his fingers by taking this. And I'm just going to give him 3 fingers. Form them. And I'm going to color his fingers in. Let it dry for a minute, because it's a lot easier to get the color now than when it's on the white. And then this one will come this way, and we want this going underneath. So we know it's going to swoop around here. Swoop, swoop. So I'm just going to notch this out like that. Add some water. I should have a bigger brush for this. Actually, I'm going to use this. Nice and wet. Press it down. I want it to stick well. Okay, like this. I'm also going to scratch that up. And you can press it down. I'm trying to get it to line up at the bottom. Now's a good time to compress it in. Line it up and try to get the bumps to match each other. Kind of stretches a bit when you pull it out. Okay, we're going to start at the top here. Make the hand. Same way. 3 fingers. Sometimes I do 4, but I find with this particular pattern, you go 4, the fingers get too thin and they break. So 3 fingers is good. Now I'm going to take the end of a paintbrush and I'm going to coax the fingers into folding. So it'll go over the rim. And then make a little wrist for him by doing the same thing. Folding that. And then I'm going to make the handle like that and let it sit up for a bit. Okay, now that it's dry, and you can tell it's dry if you look sideways. Let me see if I can pull this up. If you look sideways, it's no longer shiny, so that's how you know it's dry. Oops, don't squish your hand. Okay, let's move this out of the way. Now I'm going to take saran wrap. That's what we call it in Canada. I think that's just a brand name. So cling wrap, cellophane. This is cling seal. I'm going to lay it down. I'm going to cover this, but I want to just cover it. So I'm going to pull it tight this way, and you can just press it down into it. Okay. Now, we're going to cut this guy off along the edge. I'm getting hard here. I'm going to score this. Cut this side off as well. Pick this up. And I'm going to put the hat end down. And coax it around because it's dried up a little bit from all the hair drying, just to speed up the process. I just don't want to crack it. So I'm just coaxing it into a circle or a cylinder. You can score the piece that was on the bottom. And you can see right here, I think you can see, let me try to do it sideways. Right here, that's a ledge that's going to catch the inner piece. And then I'll push this to seal the seam. Right now, we gotta add some water. going to put him on this just because I've not tried to do this so that you can see, and I'm going to have to turn it so I can see.
Now some people say go ahead, show the seam. I like to hide the seam. Maybe I'm too new, but if my snowman was meant to have a seam in the back of his head, I don't think it would look like a snowman. Maybe the seam in the back of the hat would be fine. But I'm gonna hide it as best as I can. When you touch the back, make sure you wipe your fingers before you touch the white, just to try to keep color off. And then you go over and touch that up anyways. Just cleaning up the black that I just got on there. Wipe my fingers again. And I'm trying to keep it as clean as possible because it'll make less work later on, but I will have to touch it up anyways. Use the potter's thumb, clean it off. Just flatten this edge. Clean it off. And compress this. Okay. Just use these little cups to make sure I'm still round. And I've got a little extra here I'm going to take off. Let me show you the cup so you can see. Okay. Now I'm going to score the edge and the bottom. Around the edge, like that. And I'll score this as well. And that little lip will prevent this from falling through and just saves a lot of headaches. My giant brush here. I have to get a bigger brush next time. And wet it. And because we've been working on this project for a little while, it's drying out a bit, so I want to make sure it's really wet because I am going to be compressing it together. Let's just make it a little bit easier. And I'll just dip this in the water all together. Get all the edges in. Now I want this facing this way, and it just goes on the edge, or on the little ledge. Now I'm going to take it and I'm going to push it in to match the circle on the inside. Press it in. And I take the potter's thumb. I really like this tool. This is probably one of my favorite tools for hand building because it gives a nice even pressure. It really helps seal things up without gouging the clay. Okay, we'll work more on the bottom later. Right now, I'm going to get this little crack that's going on here. I'm going to reintroduce some moisture into that and fix it up before it gets too dry. If you can see the little crack that happened. This was drying up too much. I'm just going to fix that. I will be adding more color slip to it as well. So okay. Fold the ends that hang over a little bit down into the bottom so it gets a nice flat edge. And we're going to flip her over. Again, I want to reintroduce it being round. Just compress that hat rim back into a hat rim. Okay, now I'm going to use the potter's thumb and compress this seam on the inside.
Okay, now that he is standing upright, I'm going to take the handle and I'm going to give the inside and top a coat of colored slip so that it can dry. Get in between the fingers because it's harder, again, to do this when it's on the mug. It's possible, but it is harder. And I'm just going to get where it's harder once it's on the mug, which is the inside and the pieces that touch the mug. I don't know how long this is going to be, so I'm going to do the whole length, or most of the length. And then I'll just put this off to the side to dry in the shape of a handle that I'm looking for. There we go. And wipe your fingers. That's what my pants are for. Okay, so now that I've compressed the seam here, I am going to use both the potter's thumb and this little guy here to, actually I'm not going to do it. So now that I've got the seam compressed there, I'm going to use the stone, which I just got at Walmart in a bag of stones. It's the shape of a kidney, and I really like it for pushing out the clay. You can use a little rib, those work as well, but I find this works better, at least for me. So you just put it on the inside and just give a little push up to the rim of the hat. And you can go all the way around. It's just to give a little volume to the space, to make it a round snowman instead of a straight snowman. You can see the seams coming away a little bit, but I'll fix that. Okay, take a good look. I like how it looks. The rim of the hat is a little bit tilted, but that actually adds character when you add the hand. It's like the hat's trying to blow off. So I kind of like what's happening there with that. So I'm just going to leave that alone. And then I'm going to take both this and the potter's thumb, and I'm going to compress that ridge of clay that I had in the bottom to seal the seams. I use my hand to stop it from moving too much as I go around. And there's so many ways of doing this. This is just how I do it. If you have a way that you do it that you like better, by all means, that's how you should do it. Whatever you need to do to make the job work is what you should do. No matter what people show you or tell you, whatever works for you, don't change it. I really like this tool because it gets rid of, pull this up, don't letting it fall, it gets rid of any of those little marks down at the bottom, which can cause rough spots after you glaze. So this smooth steel just smooths them all out. And then gives a little volume to the face as I wind it up. Show you that. And then I'm going to take my sponge, which is just damp, and just smooth everything out on the inside. Let's give it a quick wipe down. Okay, put the cup back on, make sure it's round. I'll remind it it's supposed to be round. Okay, and then we can add, let's do the black, touch up the black, and we'll paint the inside of the hat as well. Remove his hat. So you can either roll up clay and put eyes on, or you can just paint eyes on. You can paint them on now, but if they get smudged, it's really hard to fix. So after I finish and I bisque fire it, then I'll come back and I'll put the eyes on just before glazing, and I'll let it dry in. By doing it, it just makes the eyes a lot crisper. You can take this. These are just leftover pieces of packaging from when we got some furniture, and I cut them down, and they're great for doing hand build up. I'm going to put this on top so that I can flip it like this. And then I can finish off the bottom, make it nice and smooth, and then the pieces in. This will be going on someone's table. We don't want any rough spots. And I'll take a wet sponge. Smooth it all out. And I like to press the bottom in just a little bit so that when it's sitting, it's not sitting flat on the whole bottom. Okay, now we gotta flip it back over and fix our round because we kind of pushed it out of round on the top. Put the cut back in and force it back to round. And we can apply the handle. So for the handle, we're going to go from the nose is the front, so we're going to go halfway and we'll score the top and the inside, the hat, the hand to sit on. And we're going to score right down there. We're going to take the hand and we're going to judge about where we want it. And we're going to cut it on an angle. We're going to score this edge, score the hand, just still damp. Spread the fingers out, give them some character. Add some water. I'm going to put our hand on and pinch it down. I think our handle's a little too big, so I'm going to cut it down. Score. Add some more water. Hands. A little wiggle. And make sure that that's attached. Clean up the slip. Let's push it out. I'm going to give the fingers a little movement here. Push them in. Okay. Splattered some pink in here. I'm going to get it out. Okay. Now I'm going to touch up the handle. So this takes a while because you have to wait for the drying process, but I'll tell you, it's so much easier having it already colored before you build it, because trying to get into all these little places is a pain. And usually I'll do 4 or 5 at once, so while one's drying, I'm doing the next one. By the time I finish the 4th one, the first one's dried, so it goes by a lot faster than just doing one at a time. Okay, that's it. So I'll do 2 more coats and I'll let it dry up, then I'll bisque fire it and I'll add the eyes, and then I'll put a clear coat on it. Okay, this is what some of them look like when they're done. It's with the bulgy eyes. This is the one that I used that I just rolled out a coil and added texture with the pin tool. If you don't want to do the hand, you can just put an ordinary handle on it, like that, and add the scarf to the bottom. Hello. This one here was done with underglaze instead of the colored slip. This guy here was thrown, so you can throw them. However, throwing them is very challenging because this dries at a different rate as the body dries, because you have to let the body firm up after throwing it. You got to trim it, then you add this on, and this is a wet clay where this is bone dry or leather hard, and as the wet clay dries, it can crack, so it's very finicky. That's why I do the hand building instead. Thanks for watching.